Can we stop for a second and talk about college football 26, man? If I'm be honest with y'all, I'm a little bit nervous about this next year game, man. College football 25, it's a good game, very good game, man. Set high expectations for the series going forward. I believe college football 26 is going to set the tone for the rest of the football franchise, wherever they end up taking it. We're officially 49 days away from July 7th when the game will early release on both consoles. But like I said, I'm just nervous because what are we gonna get? Like, are they gonna take more of the Madden approach where, it's more so of a ratings update, it's more so of a reskin sometimes. And even before this game come out, people was nervous, there's a lot of speculation that college football 26 was gonna be a reskin or 25 was gonna be a reskin of Madden. Super obvious that did not happen. College football 25, we talking about a game that maybe is the best sport game we have seen of this generation, man. One of the best sports game. If you look at the numbers, it is, outselling Madden, also winning sports game of the year. College football 26 was a phenomenal game, but regardless, next year game will not do as good when it comes to numbers, man. It's the first year back. Everyone obviously going to get the game, but it's like college football 26. If I'm not an advocate football fan, I might not go out my way to get 26 if I got 25. If I'm not playing 25 now, I might not go get 26 when it first drop. I might wait for the reviews to see if it's actually worth getting. So all of that just makes me a little bit nervous. I am fully expecting college football 26 trailer to drop some point this week, man. Whether it's Tuesday, tomorrow, Thursday, or Friday. So when they dropped the original college football trailer, that was on May 17th. Which was a Friday, man. So pretty much exactly a year ago from today. We're at May 19th now. Pretty much a year ago from today, from a couple days ago, they dropped last year's trailer. So we're due. And then also factor in that this year's game is coming out, a week or two earlier than last year's game? So by that standard, the trailer should have dropped the last week. So I think it's safe to assume we will get the trailer this week. And if we don't, bare minimum next week. And what's the expectation with the trailer? Last year, we got the original trailer. And then after that, towards the end of May and early of June, we got a couple more like trailer deep dives of, recruiting, gameplay, this, that, and the third. I'm not sure if we'll get all those deep dives because, it's like the first time the game was actually back. So maybe we do. I don't know. Maybe it'll just be like one big deep dive instead of, a bunch of them dropping. We'll see here. But trailer dropping, what do we expect, man? I'm expecting to see either like game modes dropped or maybe it won't be a whole game. I just think about mascot. If they're going to drop the new mascot mode, whatever, bring it back, you definitely will probably see that displayed in the trailer. We did get like a little bit of like a teaser earlier, but that for me was like more so like promoting college football and Madden, wasn't an exclusive college football thing. But in that trailer, we did get a couple things, man, or whatever you want to call it. We did end up like pretty much having coaches confirmed. We already knew that was coming in. We also had high school for Road to Glory confirmed. We also had like, the new 2 FBS schools coming to college football 26, which is good, but that's like super low hanging fruit. That's stuff we all expected to see in a video game. That's stuff that when it wasn't in 25 left people questioning like, hey, why is this not in the game? Like how, I understand not having the coaches, you couldn't get the money to work, whatever that situation was, but starting in high school for your Road to Glory, for some people that was a complete deal breaker, man, complete deal breaker. So they had to add some stuff like that. It's like for this next year game, they have so many different ways they could take it. So many different ways. Like I said, they could take it the Madden route. I even think about the 2K route, man. And, I'm an advocate 2K player. I play 2K a lot, one of my favorite games. We don't post it on the channel at all, but I play 2K a lot. And one thing about 2K, when you get a good one, you better cherish it because you don't know when you're going to get the next good one. You're due for a couple bad 2Ks. Right now, we're in a cycle where we got a couple bad 2Ks in a row. So hopefully this next one, 26, that comes out will be a good one. And part of me got my brain tainted like, yo, are we about to get a bad college football 26? Because like that's just what I'm used to with 2K. You get a good one, you do for a couple bad ones, then 2 years later you'll get another good one. So I hope we don't get that with college football 26. One thing I think about, the best thing about college football 25 for me, probably the gameplay, man. Probably the gameplay. And I'll argue that's the thing that matters the most. You need good gameplay. It does not feel like Madden. Madden, to me, I don't love Madden this year. It feels a little bit clunky, but I really do enjoy the College Football 25 gameplay. Heisman. Even the online gameplay is pretty solid, man. I think it is a little of a drop off. I think the CPU, the user versus CPU gameplay is best in this game right here, but I'm just a little bit nervous that we might get a little bit of a step back, and that's going to not ruin everything, but that's going to hurt the product tremendously. Even if we get everything else taking a step up, whether it's, better Dynasty, Road to Glory. We already know Road to Glory should be better with the added addition of high school, but it's like, do we end up seeing something taking a step back? I hope we don't. I'm assuming it's going to be the same system. I'm fine they use the same exact system, just tweak a few things. Blocking could be improved. Maybe even zones could be improved. There's been some glitch plays in the game the entire year that never got taken out, that never got fixed, that never got nerfed, man. Some plays just worked all throughout the year and super overpowered, never fixed them, man. But some plays they did patch, man. The jet touch pass, that's a play they did patch. So stuff like that got me a little bit concerned. Like I said, I feel like so far, we just know the low-hanging fruit is being improved. But they could just take it so many different ways. Like, are we going to see the small stuff that might not matter to the player that, just plays a couple hours a week after work? But what about the guy like me, maybe even you, that play a little bit more frequently, man, that's actively playing this game, and some things start get tedious throughout the year, little quality of life improvements that we did not have in this current version of college football. For example, recruiting. To start off, it was a little bit challenging, but once you learned the system, I would argue it's easy at this point because we know the system, man. First, that should be a whole topic of itself, but one quality of life improvement that we need to see in this next college football game is fully scout. Having to click 2 times, 3 times, to scout a player. It's a small detail. It takes, a couple 3 extra seconds to hit the button a couple more times to fully scout a player. But why we just don't have a button to fully scout? You know how much time that would save for a guy like me, maybe even you, that got pretty much 1,000 hours on this game. That's saving a significant amount of time if we just got a fully scout button. Another thing I think about is when we hard sell, when you hard or soft sell, when you know all of their motivations, you can see all of their grades, you see the green X's. Why do I still have to go into the hard sell, find the proper hard sell, and then put it on? I just feel like once we have all of the green X's, that hard sell should just pop up right there and easy, put it on, simple. Instead of me having to spend sometimes 5 seconds, 10 seconds going through finding the right proper hard sell. I don't have them all memorized at this point. Maybe I should. But that's small little details that, quality of life improvements that I'm hoping we see in this video game, man. Obviously, you want the big stuff, but it's they can just take it so many different ways. Do they improve the small stuff like that? And for majority of the people, that small stuff probably do not matter because they're, recruiting didn't get tedious because they're not playing the game that often. But like I said, for guys like me, maybe you, stuff like that does matter, man. It gets a little bit annoying. I also think about the amount of glitches in the game that just never got fixed throughout the year, man. Was there any game-breaking glitches? I would argue maybe one with the team builder where team builders was disappearing. That happened to me. My team builder completely disappeared from my online dynasty that I was running as a live streaming series. I couldn't live stream the dynasty because the dynasty disappeared off my system for 2 weeks. Literally, it finally came back, my Delaware State, and I was able to finish the series later. But stuff like that, small glitch. But also the speed rushing outside linebacker never develops. The strong arm quarterback never develops. The wide receiver, the slot wide receiver, that's 3 glitched archetypes that will never develop. Yes, it's fun to, you could finesse it in the game. Having those archetypes do make for a better opportunity to finesse the game if that's what you into. But sometimes I just want to move my middle linebacker to outside linebacker because I need an outside linebacker, and he turns into a speed rusher, and now he's glitched out. Now he won't develop, man. Stuff like that is amazing that it never even got fixed. And I understand all throughout the year you're working, you drop the game, you drop in small updates, and then you just focus on the next game. You just try and fix the next game, get it right, make sure you have it on time, all of that. But don't forget about the old product. Also, you got the glitch where recruiting, where you can put the hard and soft sell on the same exact one. For an offline dynasty, not a big deal. Not a big deal at all, man. Because you don't have to do it for your offline dynasty. The CPU is not going to do that glitch. At least I hope they're not. But when you're playing in an online dynasty, you damn near got to do it. Or you at a disadvantage because everyone else in your league is doing that glitch. If you don't, you're at the disadvantage because that's the best possible way for you to get a recruit. And for them to not fix something so small like that, I think is a little bit of an issue. The glitch was in the game all year, but didn't really get exposed. Maybe halfway through, maybe 6, 7, 8 months into the year, it really got exposed to where everyone kind of knew about it. So what do we know will be in college football? What's the guarantees? The guarantees: high school for Road to Glory, also coaches in the game. Those are the 2 guarantees that we know will be in this next game, pretty much for a fact, man. I think one of the biggest question marks for me, and nobody is really talking about it yet, is what's going to happen with recruiting in this game, man. It's just so many ways they could take it. They could take the simple approach, like keep it similar to this year recruiting method. I'll be extremely disappointed if we got the same exact recruiting, just updated. I think I'll be disappointed just because this is a big year for NIL and then also rev sharing, man. First of all, college athletics is going to look very different over the next year or two. I think that also is puts EA in a weird spot because what do we do with NIL recruiting when a year from now, 6 months from now, it could look 2 weeks from now, really tomorrow, it could look very different, man. The house settlement, a lot of people don't know about the house settlement, haven't seen it talked about much on the YouTubes, but because I work in college athletics, I guess I actually know about the situation. So pretty much you have your college athletes going to get a piece of actually the athletic department revenue. So they're going to get paid directly by the university as not employees, but pretty much damn near employees of the university. Now they won't be considered employees, but they're gonna get paid actually a percent of what the university makes. You might be thinking, oh, how do they get paid now? They get paid through NIL, which is not true NIL, which is name, image, or likeness. You're getting paid usually for how good of a athlete you are, not actually a name, image, or likeness. You're just getting paid for how good of a player you actually are with the collective. A lot of these universities, pretty much every university, FBS got a collective that pays their players. So we think you're this good, we're going to give you $2 million, $4 million, whatever, Nico Carson back to come be our quarterback, and we're giving you that money from the collective. What's the collective? If you want to donate money to whatever school collective, that money go into a pot. Someone's deciding where that money goes, and how they're paying their players. And it's not actually being paid through the university. It's getting paid through this collective, if that makes sense. But point is, all of that's going to look different as now collectives are pretty much not going to exist. You will have NIL, but it's going to be actual NIL is what we're thinking, So if, your name, image, or likeness, you're going to actually have to go to that car dealership, shoot a commercial, and, get paid that way. You're actually going to have to go to that store, make an Instagram post, and actually get paid through that store. And you also will get paid through the university, through rev share, but it won't be like NIL collective, because honestly, none of that money was really NIL money. It was just collective money, and a lot of people were confusing it. So I know that was a lot, but how do we put that in college football? And I don't think there's no right answer. There's no right answer to put that in college football. But I think we're wrong if it's not in there at all. I think, rev share should be in there as some way, but it's tough because the game comes out in 49 days, and House still hasn't made the settlement. We thinking it's probably going to come out this week. It might already came out by the time you're watching this video. But it's the court hasn't really, the judge really hasn't decided if, that's what we're thinking is going to happen. The judge really hasn't decided. So it's tough for the game to really put that in. Realistically, it will be maybe in the game next year, or maybe they don't want to touch that at all. Maybe, a lot of people, oh no, that sounds horrible. I don't want to have to deal with that, But I think about this. Put the athletic director in the game. Athletic director. Put that in the game. In Madden, we have the owner. And then you have the coach. You have the OCDC, Put athletic director. Head coach. When you're the athletic director, that's when you got to deal with all that NIL stuff. How your players getting paid. Retaining your players. Recruiting. also directly impacts NIL. NIL directly impacts recruiting. If you don't have the NIL budget, you don't have the recruiting budget at times, man, and vice versa. So in the current game, NIL is not represented at all. Some people said, oh, brand exposure is your NIL. No, it's not. Not even close. Brand exposure is how often you appear on TV, national televised games, in the video game. Some people said your hours, your school prestige and how many hours you got to spend that represents your NIL. I'm willing to hear that out. That's the closest thing we have. But I want something that's like truly NIL that we know, okay, this is what NIL is supposed to be in the game. And the only way I can see to do it right is to make it so you could turn it on and off. And my version of turning it on and off is, okay, you want it off, you make it coach. You want it on, you make it athletic director, where now you have the budget, it's almost more so like you have a salary cap. It's going to be a salary cap. These colleges, a lot of these top colleges got $20.5 million to split amongst a whole athletic department. So 17, 18 million might go to the football team, and the other 2, 3, whatever million will go to the other sports. So in a video game, you'll have about 17 million to spend on all your players, and however you spend that, you spend that. That's for the top programs. When you get into the smaller schools, smaller conferences, you're dropping off. You're not going to have as much money, but that's also incentivize you maybe to move up to a different conference, whatever. It's a bunch of different ways you could put it in the game. I just think we need it represented some way, somehow, because it plays such an impact on college football, man. Plays such an impact on the transfer portal, on recruiting, on players decommitting, committing to another school, decommitting again, committing the third time, entering the transfer portal for the bag, going back to the original school because they didn't get the bag they want. It's a lot of crazy stuff happening in this portal, and I would like to see in the video game. I understand a lot of you may not. A lot of you just want to hop on and play the game. You don't really care about all that extra stuff. But a guy like me, I want that in the game because that's what's going on in real life. And maybe you make it a setting where, I'm going to keep saying this, put settings in the game. Put recruiting, maybe even the transfer portal, just put settings on it, intense, moderate, neutral, like put settings on the transfer portal. So if I put that thing on intense, we got players jumping in the portal, decommitting, a little bit of everything, a little bit of madness. Maybe put a setting on NIL, make it more Heisman, All-American. Let's not just have that for, the gameplay. Have that for some of the stuff outside, like recruiting, also, just other stuff. You could put settings on a little bit of everything like 2K does. 2K does a pretty good job. You can make the trade intensity. You can make recruiting classes or draft classes in 2K better. I would like to see some stuff like that in College Football 25, especially that athletic director game mode. Or really, it's not even a game mode. Just put that in the game where you could become an athletic director and control more stuff. You control how the revenue, like if you want to take over a small school and move them to a bigger conference, okay, you got to make a certain amount of money first. You got to win games. You can't just move a team to another conference without the cheese. You got to make a certain amount of money, and then once you're able to increase, your rev share to this new budget, whether it's better ticket sales, you raise the prices of concessions, parking, and because your team is winning, then you got more demand, stuff like that. It's whole behind the scenes. I know everyone not here for that, but I am. And I know we talked a lot. If y'all made it to this point in the video, like, comment, subscribe. If y'all enjoying, let me know down below. Also, let me know y'all thoughts, like what we need in the game, what y'all think will be in the game. Do y'all think we actually get in the trailer this week? I think it's a lock. Whether we get it Friday, Thursday, tomorrow, I think it's a lock. It comes out this week. If I'm wrong, it's coming out next week. We'll be okay, man. But other than that, that's really all I got to y'all, man. I might make a part 2 to this video, especially when that trailer does drop. We're going to be reacting to it, all of that. And that's all I got for y'all boys. If y'all enjoy it, like I said, like, comment, subscribe. Click the video on the screen now for my Mississippi State rebuild.